Hello everyone, welcome to Town Talk. I'm Jack Hathaway, your town administrator. I'm joined this month, again, by our chairman, Jim Lehan. Welcome,
Jack.
Jim.
Thank you.
Well, we're here for the February edition, and we're just about, we're on the eve of what sounds like an epic snowstorm. So
We're a little overdue.
we are a little, we're a little overdue, which has been a help to the town budget, but I think a lot of people are, there's a lot of excitement about the snowstorm, obviously a lot of concern, but I think a lot of people are looking forward to a big snowstorm we haven't had in a couple of years.
Well, for years I used to look forward to snowstorms. Now every time we get one, all I hear is the cash register go, so
Yeah.
it has a different impact.
So as you know, we have a couple of things going on. Bob McGee, our DPW superintendent, and our DPW director, I should say, and the public safety chiefs, Cole Bishnile and Chuck Stone, have been having conversations about how to prepare for the storm, and we've done a couple of things that we're kind of adding on that we haven't done in the past. We're going to have a loader in the center of town, kind of available for the really primary purpose is to be there for the ambulance. If the ambulance has to run out to a house, that we can quickly get to somebody who needs some help. So that's one thing we're doing in preparing for the storm. I know obviously the police and fire will have extra people on duty. So I think we're as prepared as we can be, but 2 feet of snow is certainly something that
And if folks lose power and they need shelter, the senior center will be open as a shelter, and the H Olive Day will be a backup for folks. So hopefully that won't happen, but if you need help, and I think this is going to be hopefully shown the night before the storm. If you do need help, you do have issues like that, contact the police, and we'll be sure that you get transportation and get down there.
Yeah, do not hesitate to call 911 if you are concerned, if you're getting cold, particularly those elderly and others that may need some extra help. But anybody, call 911 and they will help you. Don't be afraid to use that number in the snowstorm or anytime. That's what it's there for. We actually, through this process of the Regional Communications Center, we learn more and more about the capabilities we have and the importance of the education process of getting people to get off of the business lines and use the emergency lines. Because the emergency lines have more capabilities. Your address will pop up with a map right on the dispatcher's desk. It helps us, find you, especially if we lose the connection for some reason. But also it helps the town's funding. The more 911 calls we get, the more aid we get from the state. So I'm not doing that for a self-serving purpose, but really the primary reason is it allows us to respond quicker when we get that address popping up on the screen and the map, that we can give that information right to the public safety officials. Do not hesitate to call 911. That's today's message.
And maybe before we get into some of the things we wanted to chat about, one other sort of informational item. We are changing the date of our town election and also of our town meeting. As I'm sure you all know, there's going to be a special primary on April 30th. The governor has signed into law our ability to move our town meeting, which was scheduled for the first Tuesday in May, or town election, which was scheduled the first Tuesday in May. And our bylaw states that town meeting follows the week after. So we have voted to move our meeting to April 30th, town meeting...
Election
to April 30th, and town meeting the following week. This is a good thing. We won't have folks going to the polls twice. It'll save us between $3,000 to $5,000 in expense. So
better turnout.
April 30th, and a better turnout, which is a good thing as well. Yeah.
You're right, and it's just as a reminder, the election will be at the Freeman Kennedy School on April 30th. Right. The town meeting will going to go back to the junior high,
middle school,
and obviously with the bigger auditorium and the better seats, a better location for a long meeting, which we would expect the annual town meeting to be.
Yeah. And actually, that's a good lead-in, Jack. I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about was town meeting. And we're in the process of getting the warrant ready for town meeting. A lot of things on the agenda, but one of the things that we've been talking about, and actually something that I would very much like people to give us some feedback on, this is really just sort of our opinion, but several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we passed some rules associated with town meeting that was really designed to expedite it, to make it more user-friendly for people. It was with all the great intent. But when you do pass rules of this nature where you change things, it's always good to take a reflection back and see whether or not it's accomplished what you wanted it to accomplish. And we think that town meetings attendance has actually gone down, not gone up. And some folks that have been very traditional and long-standing in their attendance really aren't coming anymore. And in talking with people, I think there's some frustration that the time limits, inability to really get into discussions around issues that are important to people are such that it's difficult to do. So we'd like to kind of revisit some of those rules and see whether or not we're accomplishing what we've, and actually they weren't sponsored by the Board of Selectmen, they were sponsored by other parties, but we'd like to take a look at them and get your opinion as to whether or not we should make some changes to those. Town meeting is an important opportunity for people to get information. You are the voting body. You're the ones that you are the ones, the voters, that decide what we do in this community and what we spend it on and how we spend it. And your participation is vital. We do not have we still have, I should say, an open town meeting where every registered voter can come and participate in the process. It's a process I hope we never lose. Some towns have gone to delegate voting, which limits really, I think, the public's opportunity to really have a say in their community, and hopefully will not do that here in Norfolk, my hope, but the future will tell. So give us some feedback on it. We have an opportunity to put some articles on the warrant to facilitate some of those changes if in fact, we're not getting done what we thought these rules would provide us.
Yeah, it's great. I actually started looking at after our meeting, selectman meeting on Tuesday night. I started looking through those and kind of making my own notes about what I think might need to be changed. So it's right, the town bylaws are right on virtualnorfolk.org. You go up at the top. There's a link right to the bylaws. Go there, and it's I think it's Article 1, Section 7, but it's right in the beginning talking about town meeting procedures. So just go there and make some suggestions. Yeah,
please give us some feedback. Be very helpful.
Some of the other things that we've been talking about, either with the selectmen or I know the Economic Development Committee is already working on some articles for town meeting. Changes to the C1 district, so that's the area down by 1A and 115. I know some potential companies that are interested in coming to Norfolk that need some zoning changes to that area. So they've come to the Economic Development Committee and they gave us a quick update the other day, but there will be some changes to the C1 district to allow some different businesses in that area. The B1 district, I think, is a follow-up to the fall town meeting. There's some little revamping and maybe some a thought of reconsideration of some of those articles that were brought to the fall town meeting. With a little more education and some tweaking to those articles, we'll have some articles back from the Zoning Bylaw Study Committee for the Springtown meeting. So.
Yeah, zoning rules or bylaws are very confusing to people. Even those that write them and interpret them, they can be confusing. And we did not do a good job, I think, collectively between the Economic Development Committee, Board of Selectmen, Planning Board. We didn't present to you, the voters, a complete understanding of what all those articles were about, because they really were all interconnected articles. And when you approach them individually, like we do in town meeting, it can be very confusing. And we need to do a better job of that. And one of the things I think hopefully you and I have talked about is before town meeting we can do a show of this nature and just talk specifically about zoning so that people will, when they go to town meeting, will be better informed. Again, with the restraints on the amount of time we have to share information around that under the current town meeting rules, it's difficult. So we need to get as much of that out in advance as we can. And it reminds me, one of the other things that we were thinking about, the advisory board brought forward an article several years ago to automate the warrant process and not to mail them out. And at least the feedback that I've gotten is that that's not working well, that people really miss having that paper document arrive at their home and an opportunity to read it and study it. So that was done really with the intent of saving costs. I think there's this impression that everybody spends hours on computers when the truth of the matter is probably most people don't. Unless you're on Facebook or something, I guess. So we'd like your feedback on that as well, because that's something we should revisit if it's not doing what we thought it should do. So.
Yeah, I think I actually looked at that one too. Just and clearly, we removed a couple of years ago. We took out the requirement to mail it. In conversations between obviously the selectmen and the advisory board, I think it's kind of a universal feeling that even without the requirement, we're going to mail it out this spring.
Yeah. Personal feeling from my perspective, absolutely. It's just. People need the opportunity to read it, digest it, ask questions, pick up the phone, call someone, ask questions about it. It's just a much more effective tool in getting people informed on what's going on.
And then on top of all that, it's also just a good reminder that town meeting is coming up.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing either. Well, our lives are busy.
And I know before I was required to go, that was my reminder of the fact that town meeting was coming when I got that warrant in the mail. So.
When did that change?
About 10 years ago. So what else? Snow. I got that. We got that covered.
Let's talk about the budget. We're entering the budget cycle.
Yep.
And Jack is in the process of getting all of the department heads and so on. But let me just talk a few minutes about the schools, because the schools represent pretty much 2/3 of all of the money that we allocate in our town government. About 67% of the budget goes to King Philip and our Norfolk elementary schools. We've gotten some preliminary numbers from both schools. The elementary school for a level services, I think is the way they put it, a level services budget need an additional 3%. That's about $300,000 a year based on their current budget. King Philip has a much more complicated process, partially because it's driven by 3 towns as opposed to 1. But they go through a very intriguing process. And last year, I think their first iteration of this required somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.3 million contribution on the part of Norfolk, as well as Rentham and Plainville, substantial amounts as well, something that none of us can afford. This year, their preliminary budgets are similar, unfortunately. They're looking for an 11% increase. That's sort of the wish list number that they seem to start with every year, and then we start working our way down. They're doing some very good things to help control some costs there. They're reviewing their health insurance packages and things of that nature that we all think will result in some substantial cost savings for them. So they're good partners in the process. We're just beginning, but they are doing some very aggressive things to try and control their costs. So
yeah, one thing I just want to for proper procedure, I guess. I think the elementary school hasn't gone through their hearing process
No, they have
yet.
not.
So,
no, it's very
so that
preliminary.
number that you talked about, and I've heard it too, is they have not finalized that yet. So
there has been no school committee action that on the budget. Good point of clarification.
Versus King Philip that has gone through.
Right.
They've had a town meeting vote, school committee vote. So that's so. We did I thought we did a pretty thorough update on the selectmen's meeting a couple of weeks ago. But we talked about the new revenues. We'll have $800,000 to $900,000 in new revenues. King Philip looking for $1.1 million, and the elementary school looking for $300,000. Obviously, you can see we're already in a tight situation. So those numbers, at least on the King Philip side, will hopefully be able to be.
Well, they will be. They will be adjusted.
Whittled down as they sharpen their pencil.
Yeah.
And then we'll start addressing the other departments and figure out the needs across the town. So.
Yeah.
And there are, as every year, there's a lot of needs. I know we've had conversations with the recreation department. They're looking for, a lot of concerns about the quality of the fields, and the maintenance that goes there. The police department and the fire department obviously have their needs. So it'll be obviously it'll be the typical budget year, but we'll get through it. And
it's never easy,
Nope.
and there's never enough.
There is never enough.
Never enough.
Speaking of just police, there's on Facebook, and you brought up Facebook too. Norfolk Police Department has a Facebook page now, and they've been very active. Detective Fletcher, in particular, a lot of updates about break-ins that have been happening over the last couple of months. So if you go to Norfolk, if you are a Facebook user, I'd encourage you to like the Norfolk Police Department. Make sure you get Norfolk, Mass, and not Norfolk, Virginia. And Nate does a great job. He sends out a quick posting when there are some incidents happening, and he's actually gotten feedback from people with information about vehicles that we're looking for, and we've actually made apprehensions from people, hearing back from people. So
Just recently.
Just recently.
Yeah.
So I give them the credit they deserve for doing more work. Nate is also organizing, because of some requests from people, some neighborhood watches. So I know he and I spoke this morning. He's going to have a meeting coming up at the library, is probably the location he'll have it, for people that are interested in organizing neighborhood watches, and he's happy to participate in that. I'm sure the selectmen and I will participate in that as well, just to get those started, and maybe we'll have a neighborhood watch in your neighborhood.
Maybe.
All right, so where are we? We've
One thing that, another thing, Jack, I thought would be helpful to update folks on is the solar panels.
Okay.
Just in terms of the financials. We presented to the community that we thought this would be a good thing and that we'd get substantial savings in terms of our bills, and we're into it now. We have some results, and I think that's worth sharing.
Yeah, it's we are receiving. Actually, Bob and I were having. Bob Bullock and I were having conversations with NSAR today. We're still working on getting the credits from them. They are being a very stubborn corporation, as they like to be, but we're looking at about $90,000 in credits that they owe us. So we're from last summer, and then probably another $60,000 of credits that we'll get over this winter period, and then we'll start. Hopefully, finally this month, we'll start receiving credits on a month-by-month basis. But we're probably looking at about $200,000 in credits for fiscal year 13. So that'll be a
Which, amazingly enough, is just about what we predicted.
yeah.
Occasionally we get lucky.
Hopefully that'll all work out.
Yeah.
But they've been great, and we haven't, knock on wood, not that this is wood, but we haven't had any damage down there. Hopefully they'll hold up in the storm that's coming up, but very low maintenance as was sold to us, so it's good to see that that's holding up.
Yeah, and good use of land that really had very limited use for any other purpose.
Absolutely, and we've got solar panels now on top of the Freeman Kennedy School, and a much smaller array, but that is producing energy and reducing the cost to the Freeman Kennedy School. So that's worked out well. And we talked about it at the Selectmen's meeting the other day. The Selectmen have endorsed at least exploring a program through the Energy Committee. It's called Solarize Mass, and it's a program where the town will go out with an RFP and secure an installer that will work with individuals in town who are interested in installing solar panels. We'll have an education process. We'll receive some money from the state for that process, but it'll really help people who are interested in getting solar panels on their house. It'll give them a resource to do that, and with a fixed cost, so that it's like going to, I think solar panels these days are kind of, people are concerned about going to the car dealer and not knowing what the price is. We'll have the price on the windshield, as they say.
Well, they can be an industry sometimes that can come and go, and what this process will do is give some people, I think, some security, or at least some comfort that there's been some due diligence around the businesses that are offered to them. They're not required to use those businesses. There's no restrictions. You can go anywhere you want, do whatever you want, but it would provide you a little bit of opportunity in terms of knowing that there's been some due diligence. And I think that there's no downside to going through the process, and we're seeing more and more folks doing it in town, so it's a good thing.
So the Energy Committee will be kicking that off. We've got an application that's due into the state this month, in February, just talking about how we're going to have an education process, so that'll happen. Hopefully we'll get awarded that from the state, but regardless, we'll enter this process even without that award, I would think. And we'll have hopefully installations going on this summer, so it'll be great. It's something I'm going to look at. I've got a good spot for it, so encourage others to do the same. There are a lot of tax incentives and obviously just the energy savings, so be a good program.
We hope so. Go ahead.
No, you go first.
Well, I was just going to say a couple of other things that we thought might be of interest to you. As part of getting ready for the town meeting process, we are looking to continue, as we have for years now, on how to develop our commercial opportunities. Not always successfully, but we're certainly open to trying different things to try and encourage the appropriate types of businesses to come into town. Jack had mentioned that we're looking at some changes to the C1 district, which is down on 1A, to accommodate some different types of businesses that have expressed interest down there. We were not successful in getting any funding for any of the efforts that we've made over here concerning the Boardman Street area, and we're not going to pursue that in terms of any tax liabilities to Norfolk residents. So currently that one's kind of in the back seat and off the table. But we do continue to pursue our good friends from Stop and Shop. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be having a meeting with them in the next couple of weeks to see if we can't loosen the juggler somehow on some of the properties that they own over there. But we continue to try, but I think we've got at least an opportunity now to have some conversations that we haven't had for several years. So maybe at the next time we have one of these meetings, we'll be able to tell folks a little bit more. But
that would be great. It's amazing to me.
We'll see.
I mean, obviously, holding real estate is one thing. That I think they've embedded that cost, but the construction of those 2 units next to Walgreen, I don't know how they have those empty for, it's got to be 4 years now, and not have those filled. I would think, earning $10 a square foot is better than not earning $28 a square foot. But
well, we know that the rent that they're asking is twice the going rent for the Norfolk area, and I've also heard several folks have approached us come to the Board of Selectmen trying to lease space in Norfolk. There, believe it or not, is a demand for small businesses in Norfolk. We've had quite a few people approach us looking for locations. And that is a perfect location, but they've had difficulty in working with the folks that own it. In fact, in some instances, even getting a return phone call has been a labor of love. So hopefully we will be able to get this meeting that we think we're going to have here in a couple of weeks, and I can share back hopefully some news that we've been able to make some progress on this, because it's not I find it difficult to understand how it's in their best interest. It was certainly not in ours. So all we can do is try.
Yeah, I had two quick things. One was the Norfolk Range is sponsoring a Clean and Green program on April 6th, so I know we're still a couple months away, but they go out and do a lot of cleanup in town, and I think you said they had 400 pounds of trash?
2,200.
2,200 pounds of
trash last year.
So, obviously they're doing a lot of great work if they're getting pulling up that much trash off of the streets, and so we appreciate that, and I know obviously you hear from a lot of other people who are just on their own cleaning up.
That all comes from people just driving through town. None of that comes from
No, it's not our stuff. Right. It's Franklin people. And the other thing was, I know my good friend, I shouldn't say my good friend, but my good barber, Joe the barber, is moving, so he'll be moving from his location at the end of, down by the 1A, 115 corner, down around to where the old library used to be.
But staying in Norfolk.
Staying in Norfolk, but he's going to be across from Guido, so I want to make sure that there's a lot of regulars for Joe's, so I want to make sure they don't think he left. He's just around the corner, so that'll be happening in April.
Do you get a discount?
I do not. I pay the regular price. I should. I think I get the funny joke there, Jim.
I think you did. Just update folks on Gumps. Most of the permitting has now been completed. You should see some activity going on there early spring. As soon as the weather breaks and we have an opportunity to start to work, we'll begin work on the playground. There will be a community garden, pretty much as stated. We're excited about it. We're hopeful it might even get done and operational by midsummer with a little bit of luck.
That would be great.
But we're ready to go.
That'd be great. Speaking of affordable housing, I know that 2 of the houses, actually we're up to 3 now. 3 houses you have owners in, so congratulations to the Affordable Housing Trust.
I know that I know there are still people that wonder about all of that, and why we do it, and why it's so critical to the community. If anyone's paid much attention to our surrounding towns, Medfield specifically, by establishing Affordable Housing Trust and focusing on developing individual family homes, we actually, not only are we doing the right thing for the community, but we're protecting the town as well. Medfield doesn't have such a trust, doesn't have such an activity, if you will, and they have a very, I guess they would call it an unfriendly development going in Medfield that they're quite frankly not able to stop. So there are a number of reasons why we do this. I'd like to focus on the reason it's just the right thing to do. But we've had some great success. We've actually had 5 now that have been sold and folks living in, and doing all right. It's been a good project. And it's just very rewarding to see these, most instances, young families, several of whom lived in Norfolk, going into these homes, and it just puts a smile on your face.
It certainly does.
It really does.
Well, that's worked out great, and I know there's a couple more coming up. So
Yes, there are. Yeah.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I want to thank Norfolk Cable Television for having us today. I know the manager, Steve Gay, but Katie Woodhams, Kevin Gleason, and Donna Jones are all here helping, so I appreciate you folks helping us get the word out. So thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Jack.
Jim,
Thank you.
I know you, any other last thoughts before we go?
No, I just, again, remind people, we really would love some feedback on town meeting and ways that you think it would become more user-friendly and you would find it more informative and the opportunity to get the kind of information and background work that you need. So please give us that feedback.
Great. Thank you very much. This is Jack Hathaway, your town administrator, and I guess we're signing off this month for Town Talk. Thanks very much,
Stay
Mr.
safe in
Lehan.
the storm.
Take care.